Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Tom Murphy Show. Tonight, I'm pleased to have as my guest Alyssa Keston. Alyssa is the Executive Director of the Volunteer Center of the United Way and a long friend of the show. Alyssa, thank you very much for coming out tonight. And I know it wasn't easy to get here, and you got here, and I appreciate it.
Well, it's kind of cold out, and the one thing that we're going to have to do in the beginning is we're going to have to make sure you say Elisa instead. But that's okay.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I think I'd know it for like only 15 years.
People are yelling at their television right now.
Friends of ours, right? Why don't you tell me, just begin like an overview about what the Volunteer Center is all about.
Sure. So we're really lucky in our community to have a volunteer center. We've been around for over 6 decades, just making really efficient connections between people of any age and any stage who want to volunteer to nonprofits or good causes that need them. And a lot has changed in 60 years. Technology has made it different and interesting to connect, but at the very core, that's what we're about. We're about finding out where the real needs are, where people can make a real meaningful difference, and then letting people know where they are and directing them.
Do places like a charitable organization that needs volunteers, do they contact you and say, we need help with such and such, and then you pair up volunteers with that?
Right. If you consider what we do sort of working on both sides of the bridge, on one side are people who want to volunteer, but on the other side are nonprofits for the most part who need them.
Yes.
And so we work with the nonprofits not only to make sure that they let us know what kind of opportunities they have, and maybe we help them describe them in a way that'll be more attractive to people, so they'll help them zone in just on the kind of person they're looking for. And we also help nonprofits think about how they can use volunteers to stretch what they're doing. You know, I don't know that there's ever been a time when a nonprofit has said, stop, we have all the money we need.
Right.
But certainly now is a time when nonprofits have really tight budgets, and volunteers can be used to help them get the kinds of skill sets that they need that they might not have the resources to pay for. And that's everything from serving on a board to having people come in and help with marketing, strategic planning, human resources, legal, all those pro bono kinds of things that really help an organization when they can't hire all the people that they might want to serve their purpose.
And that's a good point that you bring up about funding, because a lot of the nonprofits have really been hurt by the cutback in government fundings at every level. You know, everybody's, it's easy to, cut back the nonprofits because, it doesn't, affect most of the taxpayers until they really need that service. And a lot of the nonprofits lost a lot of money in 07, 08 if they had endowments, in the stock market. So this is really vital what you're doing. How do you stay relevant after 60 years?
Well, it's interesting. This past year, at the beginning of 2012 and then into 2013, we undertook a very serious strategic planning process. It took us a whole year to do it, but we started from the premise of, should we even exist anymore? Do you need a volunteer center? 60 years ago, it was a group of women who found it really frustrating that they were on one side of Westchester County looking for an opportunity, only to find out that there was an opportunity on the other side, but by the time they got there, it was filled. Well, now there's the internet. Every nonprofit has its own website. A lot of nonprofits have their own volunteer coordinators. But so what's our role in this, and should we go away? But just because everybody still needs volunteers doesn't mean that it is efficient to find the right opportunities. So what we needed to do was figure out, first of all, should we exist, and then how do we change to be really efficient in this day and age? So we now rely in large measure on a cloud-based database.
Okay.
At any point in time, from your office, from your bedroom, from your phone, you can search, and we've got about 900 opportunities for more than 500 nonprofits. And they're all organized so that you can search based on how close you want to volunteer to where you live, or what kind of skills you want to use, or how often you want to volunteer. And you can search the web and you can sign up, express interest, and go off into the sunset with that nonprofit. But what we also do, and you can do that, by the way, on Craigslist, you can do it on something called Volunteer Match. There are a lot of ways to just search the web and find volunteer opportunities. What we have here that's very special is we have a place, not where you come and volunteer, but where people are, my colleagues, who are very well versed in the needs of volunteer organizations, and you can call us up, you can come in, and we can sit and say, well, what are you looking for? What are you looking to use your professional skills, or do you want to follow your passions and go someplace quite different from what you're doing in your 9-to-5 world? So we've got that ability, and then we've also got the ability to work with nonprofits to help them really think strategically about how they can utilize volunteers. And by doing that, I mean, frankly, people who give their time often give what is called their treasure. You know, they tend to support those nonprofits where they're volunteering. So all that's good. You know, people who get to know a nonprofit really start to realize the value add. And we're also lucky, frankly, in Westchester that our local government and our state government recognizes that nonprofits are an efficient way to deliver services. Some budgets have been tighter than others, but I'm hopeful that there's a recognition at the real strong role we play in creating the kinds of communities that people want to live in, want to raise their children, and frankly that businesses want to stay in. And nonprofits are businesses too. We're a very strong economic force in our area. We hire people, we pay rent, we own buildings, we buy insurance, all those things that any other business would do, we do too. So there are a lot of good reasons to volunteer for nonprofits, to support nonprofits that really do boost the whole health of a community.
Let me just ask you a quick question. If someone had a plan and the plan got canceled and they woke up one morning and said, I got a free day, could they go online and find a volunteer opportunity for that day?
Yes, we have
fascinating.
an opportunity calendar. Now, I can't guarantee you that there's an opportunity for every single day, but if there's not an opportunity, I can guarantee you that there's somebody at the Volunteer Center you could call and say, you know what, I've got some time on my hands.
What can I do?
And what can I do? And there are a lot of, it might not be exactly what you're looking for on that day, but it could lead to something really very interesting. Some things are ongoing, some things are done in a day, kinds of opportunities. We've got them all. We help everything from someone who wants to serve on a board, which is a real heavy duty commitment of time and energy, to someone who wants to go out with their family and, you know, clear a trail or write a card to soldiers. And we do that 365 days a year, but we have some special times when we do it in a more concentrated fashion.
Now, just explain to me, you are a regional, so you're not just Westchester County.
Right.
So could you talk about the area that you service?
Sure, and that's sort of new. When we first started out, we were Westchester based, and then because of some very strong and strategic partnering with United Way of Westchester and Putnam, for about 30 years we were active in Westchester and Putnam counties. But then back in 2011, New York State decided that it wanted to establish 10 regional volunteer centers.
New York State United Way, or?
No, New York.
The state
New York
itself.
State itself,
okay.
right. And it used the same footprint that are used for the regional economic councils that people might have heard of.
The Catskill region and Adirondack
Exactly.
region.
So we're the Mid-Hudson Valley Regional Volunteer Center, and we cover in some way Westchester, Putnam, Rockland, Dutchess, Ulster, Orange, Sullivan. Did I leave anybody out?
That's huge.
It is. And frankly, our sweet spot is still Westchester, but we're getting more and more involved with Rockland, and we've always been with Putnam. But you know, there may be bridges, but there are no walls between those counties. And people live and work and commute. And sometimes you want to volunteer where you're working, and sometimes you want to volunteer where you are living, or your kids need to know where they can volunteer, or you want to find something for your mother to do because she's retired and has a lot of time on her hands. So Rockland County doesn't have a volunteer center. Putnam doesn't. very few of the places in our region do. So we're working, and that's where that cloud-based database comes in handy. We work with them to post opportunities. We do some special training with nonprofits in those counties, and we engage them in our 2 community-wide days of service, one on 9/11 and one on MLK Day.
Do you have a lot of kids who are trying to do service either for bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, or for a school service-based organization?
Absolutely. We do, and that's always been something that we've gotten a lot of traction with, which is good because studies show that if you volunteer early, you volunteer for life. So we love it when young people either are dragged in to volunteer or decide they want to do it on their own. But what I think is a little different now, and we're talking to young people about it, is that it used to be that there were entry-level job opportunities for
Yes.
kids that aren't necessarily available to them because adults are taking those places. So teens especially really do need to see volunteering not only as something that fulfills some requirement that someone has for them or looks good on a college resume, but it really does help you get experience that matters. And what we're doing now is we're tweaking one of our programs that we've had for a number of years, a job readiness program, to make sure that people who go through it, teens as well as adults, know that there's a way to talk about your volunteer service so that it shows up on your resume as real experience.
Right.
And I use my own resume as an example. You can't tell, if you look at my resume, what I was paid for and what I volunteered to do, because it's a resume based on experience, and I got some of my best experience doing
a volunteer.
volunteer. Absolutely.
You know, just as an aside, when I was in high school, a senior in high school, you had to do a volunteer, activity in your community. And a good friend of mine, another young person, started a roller hockey league. And I had never played roller hockey. And he asked me to coach because he couldn't get coaches. And I coached this year of roller hockey. And the team I coached actually won the championship because he picked the kids. So it wasn't anything. In spite of me, they won the championship. But I ended up coaching roller hockey for years afterwards because you just you buy into it and you have fun doing it and you make relationships and it was something to do every Saturday morning. So I think sometimes when you don't know where a volunteer opportunity is going to take you.
That's right. And it works. It certainly works for young people, but it works for adults too. We had a tremendous number, and still do, of adults who are in between jobs and realize that they can spend all their time on the computer job searching, or they can take some of that time and actually volunteer and do so in a way where they're refreshing their skill sets or learning new skills. They're keeping their network active and alive and broadening it. They're feeling good about themselves, and they may actually find that a volunteer opportunity leads to a job opportunity. So there are a lot of great reasons to volunteer. I think the dirty secret about volunteering is that you get more than you give. Yeah, you didn't know where I was going
No,
with that.
I didn't know where you were
know.
going. That really piqued my interest there for a second.
You get more than you give. You really do.